Here we are at lesson 11. Now, we've been kind of flip-flopping back and forth between CSS and doing styling things, and then going back into HTML. So the last focus here has been images. We spent a ton of time talking about Creative Commons and how to make sure we're citing images. We just got done with programming them. So now in lesson 11, you're going to learn how to jazz things up and be able to style those images. And there's all kinds of cool properties. So here's what I want you to do, because I want you to look at these with me so that you can see some more examples. I know back on lesson number 10, you looked at some personal websites and gave some critique on those, whether it was colors or fonts, and you got some idea about, ooh, yeah, that font wasn't very easy to read, or maybe you didn't like the color combination, or that one about my trip where it had all the pictures and it was so busy you couldn't even really see the text that was included on the screen. So keep that in mind as you're going to start to add images and how you want things to look. But what we want to do first is I want you to grab your Chromebook, log into code.org, meet me at lesson 11, level number 1, and you'll see this screen. So pause the video as you need to get everybody at this stage. All right, let's first look at sample number 1. We kind of have seen this example before a little bit when we first talked about style. I'm going to move myself out of the way here. And honestly, I think I just want to go into full screen so that you can take a look at it and see what we've got here. So you have learned how to do color on your text. You've learned how to do background colors, okay? How to italicize. They've got their citations in here, which is good. And I like that the citations are in a different heading size, that they're smaller, so they don't distract away from your text and the actual content on here. Okay, but here's the one thing that's new that you haven't seen before. These images now, notice that they're sized. Now this Lincoln photo isn't quite the same as these. These are more square and this is rectangular, but at least height-wise, they look to all be uniform. That kind of makes the website look a little nicer. In addition, we've got this colored border around here. That's cool. Along with a color around the border. Kind of like that too. Okay, sweet. All right, go ahead and back out of that one. I guess I have to do, there we go. And I want you to now flip into or click on the sample number 2, which is the one about the bees. Oh, I love this one. Okay, now I'm not going to get into some of the things like spelling errors and so on. Some of these have been taken from actual student work that code.org has had people submit and so on. So for example, line 13, it says Pixabay, and that's a typo. It's supposed to say Pixabay, whatever. But what I really want to look at here is kind of not just the style overall, but especially the style on the images. All right, so let's take a look here. Go ahead and browse through the main content first so you get the idea. So it's all about helping save bees. Love that. Oh, I guess this is it. One picture. Okay, that's all right. I love the color combination. I do like, just like the first sample, the citations are positioned and written in a way that they don't overpower the rest of the page. Yes, they have to be there. Yes, that citation information is important. However, it does not have to be the same font as your paragraphs. Okay, it looks like they're probably using an H5 or an H6 heading. I strongly encourage you to think about doing something like that, just so that it doesn't overpower the rest of your content or your images and kind of take away from those. Love the color combo. And then take a look, focus in on the border around this image. I love the fact that the corners are kind of rounded, but then this one has something a little different. If you look really closely, now I can see it because I made it full screen on mine, and maybe do that on your Chromebook as well, because I'm not sure if you are looking up front, um, if you are in class, if you will notice this, but the right border and the bottom are a bright yellow, just like your words on here, but the upper border on the top and on the left is more of a darker goldish, almost a green tone to it. So it kind of gives that image of maybe a shadow or something. And that's a little different property you can utilize when you are starting to play around with some properties for your image borders. Cool. I like that one. Okay, I'm going to go back and let's look at the third example here. Now, I have to preface this because, sometimes, and again, I'm going to make this full screen here. I can sometimes be pretty gullible and like people fake me out and I fall for something. So when I first saw this, I'm like, zebroids, is that really a thing? It says here by definition, zebroids are any other equine mixed with a zebra. And then they've got some pictures here. And then start scrolling through and do some reading about the different types of zebroids that they're listed here. They have some interesting layout, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But I got to admit, I was kind of fascinated with these different types of mixed or crossbreeds here. Zonky. I looked that one up. It does actually say it's real. It's kind of rare, but they are not able to reproduce when you cross a zebra and a donkey. A zorse. Okay. Zebra horse combo. Horba is a horse and a zebra, but the stallion horse and a zebra mare. A zoni. This does not even look real to me. I mean, some of this stuff has to be fake, right? These pictures don't look real to me, I gotta say. Regardless, okay, once we get through that, and you can take a moment in a little bit and see if any of this stuff really is accurate or true or not. But let's take off our attention away from the content and let's focus on the design. Now, here it looks like they put a background color and then they also put a white background behind some of these other headings. Okay, you can decide if you like that or not, but it's just interesting, offers some contrast. The other thing I noticed is all of these pictures have, and it's really hard to see. And so I would encourage you on your Chromebook, set it to full screen and really look closely. But this also looks like it has some sort of different border for the right and the bottom as opposed to the top and the left. There's almost like a break right here and right here in these corners. In the upper right and lower left. So kind of interesting. Very rounded corners on this one. It almost looks like a two-tone or a two-color kind of border there. Interesting. Okay. As I'm also looking, the images, they seem to differ in height, but they seem to be set width-wise, with the exception of that first one. So I don't know if they utilize that or not, but interesting. I did notice that all of their images as well as their content is centered. You have to decide if you like that or not. Okay. Interesting. All right. So that gives you some ideas of what you can do and what's coming up, so to speak, for styling images. What I want you to do, rather than getting involved with looking at the style sheet here on level number 1, just go ahead, hit continue, and meet me at level number 2. Here's where we're actually going to dive in, and I'm going to apologize up front if you're hungry. Sorry, because there's some amazing desserts that are shown here that might make you hungry. Okay. All right, so here's what it wants you to do now. Look through the web page below for new styles. So open the style sheet, go ahead at your table and talk to your neighbors about, all right, let's review here. So it looks like I've got image and HTML file. This is a picture file. You can click on them too. Oh, that looks good. Ice cream with caramels and bananas and oh, yum. All right. Um, Here's this one. That's a picture image. This last one. And then finally, you see the style sheet. That's really what we want to focus on. So it's going to ask you, all right, what makes it blue? How are the images positioned to the left? And then the text is wrapping around that. Interesting. We haven't seen how to do that. So take about 3 minutes. Pause this video. You can see there is a rule, a style rule for the body, just has blue. H1s, all they did was use a font, same with H2. And then we see what we have not seen yet, starting on line 13. They have a rule set for images, and there's a whole bunch of properties that you haven't seen before. Wow. So here's what I want you to do. I really want you to take a few moments and I want you to take each one of these. So this first property is called float and it says left. So go ahead, delete float. In fact, usually what I do is then leave the colon, leave the semicolon. And I was trying to see if I could get the drop down to show up again. Maybe what we have to do is go back, delete the colon and put it back in. Ta-da. And then your pop-up will appear. Now, notice it says inherit. I'm going to tell you that that's a little referring back to something that it's inheriting from a different rule set. So don't use that one. But they have left, none, and right. So play around, change and see what happens when you do that. I'm going to put right this time. You can see what happens. Under width, go ahead and play around with width. It says 250 px. Oh, hey, you know what? Last time, right at the end of lesson number 9, in that challenge one, you saw width and height used, and we used it in the HTML part right inside that image tag, within the image tag. And actually, you could, instead of using it there, you can put it right here into the properties, and this would take and change all of your images to have the same width. So that's the big difference here. If you change width or height, in your HTML, you're changing it just for that particular picture. If you do it here, it's going to standardize and change it for all your images. Kind of makes them look nice. Okay, play around with that number. Make sure you leave the PX. Margin, play around with the number 10, leave the PX. Border color, go ahead and play around by programming a different color for the border. Border width, again, leave the PX, change the 4, see what happens. Border style, you have a lot of options here. So again, I recommend backspace and put in the colon again so that you see all of the options that you get. Investigate all of those, as well as, excuse me, the border radius. Play with that, okay? Once you have that, then you'll be able to then go on to the rest of lesson 11. Have some fun.